Hi, I'm Rob and this is Gems of War. Now I'm finally going to get round to looking at these Cursebreaker weapons and give my opinion on each one and rank them 6th worst to 1st the best, and there's a couple of surprises because some of these are better initially than what I think. But the thing to remember is with these Cursebreaker weapons is their usefulness does depend largely on your play style, if you do guild wars or not, whether you play a team with mostly the same colour troop. All these things are relevant to whether the Cursebreaker weapons are any use to you in the first place or not. And one thing else that's really important is you have to craft them in the Soul Forge. They are only available if you get the Soul Forge up to at least level 18, and that's when you can start creating these Cursebreaker weapons. If you get the Vault all the way up to level 20, the Soul Forge rather, level 20, you can then craft Dark Smith Drenger as well. Now, I've crafted a couple of these. He's actually okay and is a lot better than his initial spell may make you think. So check back later on because I'll be doing some videos in the future based on that troop as well. Right, so let's jump into the Cursebreaker weapons. Just let it be known that this list is my own personal list on what I think of these so far. But like I say, each one will be more or less viable depending upon what colours you like to use in the game and how you like to play it to a certain degree. So what's good for me may be bad for you and vice versa. And if I miss anything out about any of these weapons, then mention it in the comments, because the whole curse and bless element can be actually quite complicated the way it kind of works, and the pros and cons depending upon who you fight. Right, so let's get on with it. One thing to make note of is that each of these weapons works in a very similar way. They all pick a particular colour. This one, for example, blue. They will always bless all blue allies in this case and curse all blue enemies and do a certain amount of damage. But the damage they do is basically laid out in a different kind of way. This one, for example, does damage to the first and last enemies. This one does damage to the last two enemies. And this one does damage to the first two enemies. So it varies on each one. And the last one, the other ones do it in a different way as well. This one does damage to two random enemies. But they all do the same thing, but based on that colour. This one's yellow and will always bless all yellow allies and curse all yellow enemies. So for me, the benefits of these vary, and the top three for me are a little bit different. They're a certain amount apart from the lower three. So we'll start from the one I rank last, which is the Cursebreaker Sword. Deals damage to the first and last enemies, so that's completely luck based, whether on, that's if that's the enemies you want to hit, then fantastic. If it's not, then tough luck really. But it then blesses all blue allies and curses all blue enemies. The thing is with bless, it's not to be underestimated, because not only is it a cleanse, but it's an extra protection level at the same time. If you've got a blessed ally, and say for example life and death casts, you're going to be saved from that death mark on the initial cast at least. So bless not to be underestimated, and neither is curse. Curse really handy. Same example, life and death. When that thing casts, for example, it's going to become enchanted, which means it's going to be ready to cast again in no time at all. Curse takes that kind of thing away. If anybody's submerged or whatever, at the same time it takes all that away if they're the correct colour, and it is a really, really handy thing to have. Really do like cursed. But the reason why this is 6th is basically because there are so many other options for cleanse. I know there's more to bless than cleanse, but all the troops, all these weapons have bless, remember. So it is, each one is more relevant than the other based on that for me. Apothecary, Mercy, Queen Beatrix and others all have a cleanse on Blue Day, so for me that makes the cleanse element of that less useful, and there's not that many blue enemies you want to actually curse anyway that initially spring to mind who are particularly annoying. So Cursebreaker Sword is in last place for me. So what is in 5th place? I'm going to go for Cursebreaker Axe. This deals damage to the first two enemies and then blesses all red allies and curses all red enemies, and kind of for the same reason as the first weapon, the cursed sword, then there are options to cleanse on Red Day, and there's a couple of them. They're okay, completely viable and very easy as well. Like Voice of Orpheus is a really good option for a cleanse there, and because all the troops have blessed, so they all get them other benefits from blessed as well, then that is the reason why Cursebreaker Axe I rate 5th. And 4th, I say is the Cursebreaker bow. Now, this is actually quite handy though. This doesn't mean say just because it's 4th place it's bad, because it's not. It deals damage to the last 2 enemies, which can be really, really useful on its own. Say, for example, take a typical Life and Death Arachnian Weaver team. Both of those troops are normally stealthy, so you can't target them with a spell, but this is going to hit the last 2 enemies, which is automatically going to be them, so they can't get out of the way of that. They're going to get hit by that, and as well as that, they're going to be... The curse is going to affect like an Arachnian Weaver style troop as well, which can be useful. And we're going to actually, you know, bless all the green allies at the same time. And there are options for cleanse on green, but not as many as some of the other colours. So that is particularly useful, especially that hitting the last 2 enemies, because a lot of teams, they put some of their best troops in 3rd and 4th position, especially if they've got a summon or something like that. So that is really handy to be able to actually effectively target them, whether they're stealthy or not. So we come to the top 3 now. This is interesting because my 3rd place one is the weapon which a lot of people may have thought should be first. And this is Cursed Javelin. A lot of people I think would have this in 1st place simply because it effectively does more damage than the other ones, because true damage obviously bypasses armor and therefore effectively does more damage, does it not? Yes, it does. But the thing is, again, we've got other options for getting a cleanse on Yellow Day, and how many annoying enemies are there that you actually need to curse to subdue their effect of their spell? Not as many as some of the other colours, and the blessing obviously is still really, really good. And yeah, overall this is decent, but the other 2 are just better for a very fundamental reason. So we've got Cursed Wand and Cursed, I keep on saying Cursed, the Cursebreaker Wand and Cursebreaker Hammer. So which one is best? Well, in 2nd place, I'm going to say is the Cursebreaker Wand. It's a superb weapon. I do really like this, but there is a very particular reason why I think the hammer is the best one. Just go over the good points of this. First of all, it does scatter damage, and a bit more of it than the other weapons. The other weapons do 40 to 2 enemies, which is obviously 80. This does 90 scatter damage, which is obviously a little bit more. Now, it blesses all purple and curses all purple enemies, as you would expect. Now, that is really handy because there are actually a bunch of really annoying teams that use the purple enemies. Looking at you, Life and Death and Arachnian Weaver, and typically these are stealthy and in last place too. So that scatter damage is going to hit them absolutely no matter what. In the case of Life and Death, the curse is going to take away that enchant from Life and Death when it casts, which is really going to slow it down. It's then going to have to collect mana like a completely normal troop. And as well as that, we're going to bless purple allies. So even when Life and Death, for example, gets to cast, and we're blessed, we're not going to be subject to that death mark. We're going to be saved from that for that initial cast at least. And as well as that, we've got a cleanse in there. So even if Arachnian Weaver got to cast first, we can remove that web that he does. So that's just an example on 2 annoying troops. So that is why I really like the Cursebreaker Wand, and that is why it is in 2nd place. So that leaves the Cursed Hammer in 1st place. Now, why is this first, you may think? Because technically, its damage is the least favourable of all the different types of damage that we've got here. It does splash damage, but the trouble with splash damage is you need to target the 2nd or 3rd troop to get the most damage out of it, because splash damage deals damage to that troop and half damage to adjacent troops. So if you cast this on the troop at the top or the bottom, you're missing out on some of that damage. So it's not great in that way. But the main reason why I've got this as my number 1 is because there is so little cleanse options on Brown Day. On Guild Wars, for example, it is just mind-boggling. There's no brown troop which does a auto cleanse or has any sort of cleanse in it. I think there's one weapon, the doomed weapon. I can't think what it is right now, but that does have a cleanse in it. But right now, that is the only option. This one weapon on its own literally doubles the amount of cleanse options we've got on Brown Day or in an all-brown team. So for that reason alone, it's worth it. And like I say, bless is better than cleanse. It cleanses you and then you get blessed. You are protected from other types of incoming damage, which is really, really handy at the same time. So that is the main reason why I have the Cursebreaker Hammer as my number 1 Cursebreaker weapon. But yeah, each person may vary. If I've missed something out on this explanation of some things which are useful on the other weapons, which you may have that as a different number 1 or number 2, whatever, then yeah, tell me so in the comments, because everyone's got a different play style. Everyone may have seen a use for a different weapon in a different team, and that all varies upon its usefulness. If there's a really, really annoying red enemy, for example, where Cursed really crucifies them, then that may be better to you. So it's each to their own, really, on these sort of things, but I really like the hammer because of just how, excuse me, it gives you an extra option on cleanse on brown weapons and brown troops. So there's a video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to think about hitting that like and subscribe button, because it really does help. Just gone over 800 subs in the last week now, which I'm quite pleased about. I started these Guild Wars videos quite randomly, really. About 6 months ago, didn't really think about anything of it. I can't even think why I ended up making a Guild Wars video. It just sort of happened. Wasn't really planning anything at the time, and it's just had steady growth from there. Not sure if 800 subs in 6 months is good or bad, but I'm just along for the ride, really, and just seeing how it goes. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like and subscribe if you want to see some more, because there's loads more coming in the future, because I quite enjoy making the videos. It's just fun and keeps my brain active during the day, which is half the point of it. So there you go. Catch you again next time. Bye for now.